Good morning. Ken Hovind here. August 14th, 3 in the morning. Get these wild ideas at 3 in the morning. I wanted to share something with you. Just came in the news here a couple days ago, and I thought it might affect everything and help a lot of things in my situation and ministry. Let me get my wonderful background set up here and looking good. Believe me, we are working on that with PowerPoint and all that stuff. It'll get better eventually. August 14th, 3 a.m. Just got up to check messages, and interesting article and letter from Congress that came and did directly impact on my case. And I'll try to get some more questions answered here after I'm done talking about this quickly. The letter is dated August 11th, 2015. The Honorable Jacob Lew, Dear Secretary Lew, this is to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, regarding the IRS seizure of bank account laws, the structuring laws, exactly what happened in my case 9 years ago. Now, the reason I'm pointing what they're doing now is that now the iron is hot. It's time to strike. It's time to get people by the millions to contact Congress and say, what happened to the Hovinds is exactly the same. Do the same thing. It's real simple. A dairy farmer in Maryland had his assets seized because his wife had made deposits under $10,000. For about 3 years, my wife and I made withdrawals of ministry money to pay ministry bills, no drugs involved, of under $10,000 about once every 12 days, totaling over $430,000 over that period of time, 45 withdrawals every 12 days. The IRS said, not only do you go to prison for 10 years for doing that, you owe all that money to the government. Well, I don't have anything, so they seized the church property. Yesterday, they sold the church parking lot, 5800 North Palafox, to somebody. I don't know who. So this is an ongoing saga, and while the iron is hot, Congress has the perfect authority to fix this, to call in and say, look, guys, what we did here, what we allowed the IRS to do is simply wrong. This is not right. We want you to overturn that stupid structuring law. We want you to make it retroactive, return the money that you seized, pay the damages to the Hovinds, and leave them alone. Congress hires these people, okay? Fire them. You hired them, fire them. You passed the law, rescind the law. Didn't they do that with slavery once a long time ago? Rescind the... Anyway, this is a letter dated August 11th, and I just want to read a couple highlighted paragraphs. On February 2015, the subcommittee held a hearing to examine the IRS's use of its civil asset forfeiture authority to seize funds in cases in which the IRS believed monetary transaction had been structured to avoid IRS reporting requirements. Exactly what happened in my case. As you know, the statute that prohibits structuring was designed to help interdict money laundering, drug trafficking, and terror financing schemes. Not innocent Americans who simply make frequent cash deposits. Yay! However, in the course of our investigation, we heard from numerous small business owners whose funds the IRS seized solely for this reason. The IRS and the Department of Justice attorneys who pursued these cases would then offer to settle if the small business owners would agree to relinquish a portion of the seized funds. I believe that they call that extortion. I would call it maybe theft. Okay. Even though in many of these cases, the DOJ and IRS conceded that the small business owners had done nothing wrong. At our hearing, Randy Sowers, S-O-W-E-R-S, a Maryland dairy farmer, testified that after the IRS seized $67,000 from his farm's account in 2012, because his wife Karen often made large cash deposits of proceeds from farmers' markets, a bank teller told Mrs. Sowers that it would reduce paperwork if she deposited the funds in increments under $10,000. Now, in our case, it was withdrawals. Mrs. Sowers did so, believing she was making life easier for the teller, not because she intended to violate federal law. Me neither. I never intended to violate any law. We were paying our own bills. Oh, gee. Anyway, then in the course of settlement negotiations, Mr. Sowers told their story to a reporter who published an article of the Sowers plight. The attorney prosecuting the case then stated in an email, the terms of the settlement agreement were harsher than in other similar cases because Mr. Sowers had exercised his First Amendment right and spoken to the press. So that's why they made the settlement harder. They had to pay $29,500 to get the IRS off their back. I had to go to prison for 9 years and pay back all the money, $430,000. This can still be corrected, folks. The fat lady has not sung. It ain't over. Ultimately, the Sowers, it's because they exercised their First Amendment right. Now, the IRS is going to say they were hard on me because we weren't withholding taxes from employees. Well, first, that's a long, interesting story. Okay, the church doesn't have to do that. They can if they'd like. We were not 501c3, and they weren't employees, but that doesn't matter. It's unrelated. They shouldn't be harder because of that. The people that worked here at our ministry all paid their own tax, and they testified so. The government didn't lose a dime in my case. Didn't lose a penny. Anyway, so what an injustice, and I think it needs to be fixed. It's my sweet, humble, totally unbiased opinion. Let's see. So ultimately, the Sowers settled their case for $29,500 because they needed the remainder of the funds to run their farm. Well, duh. I'd like things back from this ministry, too. In his testimony, IRS Commissioner Koskinen apologized to everyone who had been treated unfairly. No, they didn't. They didn't apologize to me. Call Kent Hovind in there to testify. And in fact, several months before the hearing, the IRS changed its policy to prohibit seizures based on suspicions of structuring unless the funds came from an illegal source. Well, I'm glad they changed their policy, okay, but that's not enough. They need to make it retroactive and pay back damages. It's common sense 101, guys. Get it together, okay? That policy change came too late to help the victims of the IRS abusive seizure practices. Now, the Treasury still holds funds seized from innocent small business owners who settled their cases only because they could not afford to do otherwise. As the Treasury Secretary, you have the opportunity to right the wrong done to these small business owners. As discussed in the attached petition on behalf of Randy and Karen Sowers, you have the discretion to return the seized funds to the rightful owners. The IRS's October 2014 policy change is tantamount to an admission that it never should have seized funds, which were not associated with an illegal source. Yay, they're slowly maybe getting a little part of the truth of all this. Maybe, I don't know. Don't put a whole lot of weight on that. The Sowers and others like them, put Hovind in there, should be treated with the same fairness applied to cases going forward. Yeah, we should go backwards too, okay? We ask that you grant this petition and review other similar cases and return the seized funds expeditiously. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. If you have any questions about our request, it is just a request, okay? Contact the Oversight Committee Staff. 202, I think they ought to get 1 million phone calls from folks watching this video. 202-225-3783. Again, 202-225-3783. Call them and say, look, while you're at it, add the Hovind's case to this, would you? This is exactly what happened. IRS seized funds for structuring, and it's none of their business to begin with. Okay, my hobby horse. I'm much more interested in God's kingdom than man's kingdom, but once in a while, you know, like Daniel had to do with the business of the king once in a while. And King David had to do the business of the king. And King Solomon, and there's a whole long list of people, Joseph, who were had to get involved in politics a little bit. Anyway, I just would like them to straighten this mess out and leave me. Yesterday they sold one of our properties. I mean, yeah, it has a great effect, still has a great effect, okay? I'm a felon for the next 3 years. I mean, I can't travel without all kinds of permission. Yeah, I'd like the whole thing overturned completely. So pray for that, would you please? And I think it's time to make noise and shine the light. Okay, questions, Bible questions. Sorry for taking up 9 minutes on that. This one from Nico. Doesn't have an address here. Hey, I apologize for so many questions, but I've asked, but I love how you answer things so clearly and scientifically. Well, thank you. Nico, one of my goals in life has always been to take what I do know, which is certainly not everything or even a lot of things, but simplify it down and explain it where the average person can get it. I think that's the job of any teacher. Make it simple. And I really have to credit my dad for that. My dad was an electrical engineer, Caterpillar Tractor Company, Marines, World War II. His dad died when he was a teenager, so when he got home from World War II and got married and had 3 sons, I'm number 3, and then a daughter, he did not know how to do a lot of practical things. And so he said, you know, somebody's got to break this cycle. His dad never taught him things. He said, I'm going to break the cycle this generation. He would go to the library and check out a book on how to build a birdhouse, you know, whatever, and he'd come home, read the book, and say, okay, boys, we're going to build a birdhouse. And he would teach us that. He taught us everything, electrical, plumbing, heating. We designed and built houses. We could work on cars. Man, I could do just about everything to the car, rebuild the motor, you know, just amazing. We just assumed that's the way it was. I mean, the lawnmower breaks, you fix it. You know, you tear it down. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Let's see what's wrong. And his teaching method was fabulous. Never got angry, never raised his voice. James chapter 1, verse 5 in the Bible says, if you lack wisdom, ask God. He doesn't upbraid people for asking. The word upbraid is to scold somebody or say, oh, that's a stupid question. God never does that to his people. And you shouldn't do that with your kids either. I've got 5 grandkids. They hung around yesterday, and I try to never say, that's a stupid question. Sometimes they are stupid questions. I understand. But don't say that to them. If they're asking, it's because they don't know. So if you've already explained it 40 times, don't say, I've already explained it 40 times. Don't say that. Say, oh, well, here, let me explain. Maybe I didn't explain it clearly last time. Let's sit down and try it again. So God never upbraids, never scolds us for asking. You can ask God anything. And if it is a stupid question, even if you are stupid, God still loves you and he wants to help you. And so don't do that with your kids. Don't do that. Anyway, so I have always, as I taught school 15 years, and even in my ministry, traveling and speaking now for 25 years on the subject of science and the Bible, I try to make it simple and try to explain things. And if I don't know, I say I don't know, because I don't know. So anyway, thank you, Nico. That is one of the ultimate compliments to me, that you think that I explain things clearly. Good. I want to do that. That's my goal. And you have a list of 5 questions here. I'm going to try to get to them. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. Number 1. If Pangaea never existed, why are there similar fossil species on the same parts that supposedly ripped apart? Simple question. Good question. Simple answer. There are similar fossils found all over the world because there was a worldwide flood. Animals are buried in similar layers, like, for instance, clams are all in a certain layer of similar limestone in France and in England, 100 miles away. Now, that's not because they split apart and moved apart. That's because the flood was worldwide. And we covered that on video number 6, the Hovind theory, about what caused the flood, where did the water come from, where did it go, and what did it do while it was here. It would tend to bury animals by species. If there was a worldwide flood today, everything drowned. Giraffes would probably not be found with penguins because giraffes don't hang out with penguins. They don't live anywhere near each other. They would probably be buried in different strata because they have different body densities. Penguins have more fat to be able to withstand the cold. And so animals are sorted, sort of, in what's called the geologic column, which doesn't exist. The Earth has layers of rock. That's not a question. But why are the animals sorted in there? Why are all the reptiles in the same layer? They're not, but let's assume they are, like they're teaching. Okay, well, reptiles would be in the same layer because they have a similar body density. I think the animals are sorted, first of all, based upon their habitat. Clams are found at the bottom, birds are found at the top, because clams are already at the bottom when the flood starts. They're the first ones buried. Birds are at the top, not because they evolved last, but because birds are the last ones to drown in a flood. They fly around till they run out of gas, and then they drown. So the body density is a simple one. Habitat, body density. Clam shells are heavier than bird feathers, so clams are buried in a different layer. Has nothing to do with evolution. They're sorted based upon their mobility. Clams can't run very fast. Birds can fly faster than clams can run. So they're sorted based upon their mobility. They're sorted based upon their intelligence. Some animals would say, wow, flood coming, let's get out of here and figure out a way to escape. Others just clam up like a clam. Something's going wrong. Clam up, wait till it's over. And by then it's too late. They're buried under 50 feet of mud, and they can't open and they die and petrify. So I think the explanation of the fossils is so much more clear and simple with this worldwide flood in the days of Noah, especially when you consider several other factors. The moon goes around the earth, and the earth turns. Okay, the moon goes around once every 28 or 29 days, whatever it is, but the moon is also turning. This ends up creating a high and low tide on the earth every 6 hours and 25 minutes under ideal conditions. Now, lots of things interrupt that, like, continents being in the way, but roughly 6 hours, 25 minutes is the cycle between high and low tide. Well, the moon does not know or care that there's a flood going on the earth during this Noah's flood. So the moon is continually doing its thing of pulling up the water, and as the earth turns, the tidal bump stays right under the moon, pretty much. There's a slight drag. Doesn't matter. Never mind. Forget all that. Okay. So as the earth is turning, this bump of water, called the tidal bulge, is, as far as the moon's concerned, it's just staying right there. But as far as folks on the earth are concerned, hey, that thing is sweeping around the world. So you have this tidal bulge sweeping around the world, effectively to each location, lifting the water up and dropping it back down, lifting it up, dropping it down every 6.5 hours, 6 hours, 25 minutes. As this tidal bump lifts up, the water rushes in from the side. This has the effect, especially when you consider if the earth were totally covered with water and there weren't any continents to interrupt all this, the tidal change would be about 200 feet or more every 6.5 hours. Raising and lowering the ocean level 200 feet in 6.5 hours, and all that water being moved laterally, displacing, being sucked into the side as far as a stationary spot on Earth is concerned, that would have all kinds of interesting effects. The shuffling of the sediments would be incredible just by virtue of the mud lifting and settling and lifting and settling. You can do the same thing. Get an aquarium, an old fish aquarium, put a hot water bottle in the bottom with a bunch of holes in it, hook it to a hose, and then fill the aquarium full of dirt, rocks, gravel, sand, mud, etc. One guy did this and put in there dead fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, put all kinds of mice and rats and dead stuff mixed it all in the mud, dumped it in. Turned the hose on. So the water is coming up from the bottom. As the water squirts up through all these holes in the old hot water bottle, kids, don't use your mom's hot water bottle without asking her, okay? I don't want to get in trouble with a bunch of moms and get 40 phone calls tomorrow. My kid ruined my water. Don't do that. Okay. Anyway, the water going up through all those little holes effectively lifted and then dropped all these little particles. Well, if you're constantly lifting from the bottom all these little dirt particles and mud and rock and gravel and animals, they're going to lift and then drop, but the denser ones are going to drop a little faster than the slightly lighter ones, and just that process alone will automatically sort the layers by density. And you will end up with all the reptiles in one layer and the mammals in a different layer because of their body density, and has nothing to do with evolution. So these guys who see this supposed geologic column, like Charles Lyell back in 1830, who made up the whole stupid idea, he saw that there were similar fossils in France and England, and he named all these layers after regions around there, Devonshire, the Devonian era. So they're all named after cities or regions over there in England or Europe. And you got the Mississippian, Devonian, Silurian, all this kind of stuff. The whole thing is a hoax. It doesn't exist any place on Earth except in the textbooks. That's the only place you'll find that dumb geologic column. But it's taught like it's Bible around the world, and it's not. It's silly. So the similar fossil species is because of a worldwide flood. It's real simple. There's a limestone layer that goes from Texas to France, all the way across the United States, under the Atlantic Ocean, and clear over to France, and maybe even more. So there are similar layers all over the world because there was a worldwide flood. Anyway, thank you for the question. Hope that helps. Watch my video number 5 of the seminar series for more on that. Number 2, if the rapture doesn't happen before a certain time, will that be problematic? Is the generation that will not pass away before it's all happening running out of time? No idea when the rapture is going to take place. Okay, I have a wild guess. It's going to be 10, 15 years from now. We'll see. Don't know. But no, nothing problematic. God is not the least bit nervous. He's not the least bit worried. He doesn't even have a watch or a clock or a calendar. He's not even in time. We're the ones stuck in time, not God. God's going to do what He's going to do when He's ready to do it, and there's nothing we can do about it, okay? So I think we should pray, and of course you can ask God. You can change His mind, I suppose, maybe a strong statement to say nothing you can do about it. Yeah, God reacts to our prayers and requests. But He already knows what He has planned, and He's going to win. I read the last chapter many times, and we win. God wins, so quit worrying. Okay, number 3. Have you read any of Richard Dawkins' books, like Evolution, The Greatest Show on Earth, an attempt to counter his points and disprove them? I have not. I have heard a couple of his speeches on video and stuff like that. I just haven't had time. I'm not interested in what the guy has to say. It doesn't matter what he has to say to me. Okay. What little bit I know makes me say, I don't care what anything else he knows. Okay. I'll be glad to debate him anytime. My offer's open challenge, standing till I die. I'll debate him, half my brain tied behind my back. Very smart man. Very smart man. Nice guy in some ways. But just absolute silly what he believes on this. We all came from a rock 4.5 or 6.297, whatever it is, billion years ago. Watch the Expelled movie where Ben Stein talks to him. Why he won't debate me, I don't know. I'm just a high school science teacher, that's all, who happens to love God and believe the book. But I'd be honored to debate him anytime. Let's see. Somebody, years ago, before I went to prison for dumb structuring law, said they would pay the expense. Anyway, I called Richard Dawkins' secretary and said, look, we'll pay him $1,000 if he'll debate me for 2 hours, and we can videotape the debate and make copies and sell it. We'll give you a master copy. We keep a master copy. You can sell it. We can sell it. No edits. No, other than adding better slides, post-production. That's always easier to put PowerPoint graphics in, post-production. But no changes, no edits, and no deletions, etc. She hung up on me. My secretary called back, I think the next day, and talked to him personally for a few minutes, and he hung up on her. What's that noise a chicken makes? Let's see. Number 4. What do you think about the recent emergence of the Star of Bethlehem in the night sky around June, July? I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I've heard little bits and pieces here and there, but I don't think we should be too nervous about signs in the sky right now. God, again, controls all of that, and there probably is a real story and a history with all that, and probably a lot of truth. Of one section of they stand on their feet. That certainly sounds like a nuclear explosion would do that. Blow did because he said these were the gunners who were sitting at the anti-aircraft gun. I don't. I probably. Okay. You think United States of Babylon? No, I don't. I mean, if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. You know, I don't think so. Yes, I told you, I don't think so. The nature of the beast, but the real trial has not happened yet. Well, I think I'll try here. Mike writes in, Dr. Hovind, why do people call the white horseman the AC? I don't know what that means, Mike. Rephrase the question. Oh, Antichrist. Maybe that's what you mean. The horseman, the AC, Antichrist. Okay. Zechariah 1, and you've got the passage quoted here about the red horse, and Zechariah 6, lifted up my eyes, and 4 chariots came out between 2 mountains. Both these passages, the horses imply spirits. So how come in Revelation 6, the white horse is suddenly a man, the Antichrist? The next 3 are not, just this one horseman. Is it possible that Revelation 5:6, between the throne and the living creatures and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain? Jesus opened the first seal. It doesn't say looking kingly when he took it. It says a slain lamb. Could it be that the first seal was the spirit of Antichrist, the beginning of Christian persecution? Mike, there is speculation on quite a number of verses in Revelation and 40 different opinions. I do not claim to have all the answers. What little bit I do know about it, I have taught and revealed in my book. But I try to be cautious. If I don't know, I don't go off and give some theory just to impress people that, hey, he knows it all. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't have all of Revelation figured out, and I've read it for 46 years. There are things I think I do have figured out. I think this sequence of events that I have finally taught after not teaching on it for 40 years is correct, or I wouldn't be teaching it. I think the next thing that's going to happen is a treaty that allows the Jews to rebuild their temple. They're going to rebuild the temple. And during this first 3.5 years, then Antichrist is going to break the treaty. Then there's a time of great tribulation. Jesus said all this clearly in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. That 70th week of Daniel, the 7-year period, is broken up like, and everybody agrees this is the sequence of events, but they do not agree on when the rapture of the church takes place. There are those who teach it takes place before this tribulation. That's what I used to teach. It's wrong. There are those who teach we get raptured out in the middle of the tribulation. No, that's mid-tribbers. That's wrong. I wish it was true. They call the whole thing the tribulation. Technically, only the last part's tribulation. So, good question, Mike. Why is it called the Antichrist? I don't know. Let me cogitate on that one, and maybe I can come up with a better, longer answer some other time. But I don't have that all figured out, who these horsemen represent and all that kind of stuff. So, to me, it's enjoyable studying the book. I can read the same book 500 times, and whoa, I didn't see that last time. You know, the book of Revelation is that way. The whole Bible is that way. Like, how could I possibly miss that? You know, I see so many things in the Bible as I read, like, whoa, how could I miss that? For instance, Jesus told Peter, hey, let down the nets. Peter said, Lord, we fished all night. We didn't catch nothing. But okay, just because you told us, I'll let down the net. Well, I read that story for 25, 30 years. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, and when you tried to pull the net in, the net broke. I said, Lord, why would you do that? Break their net. He said, well, and it dawned on me. Jesus said, let down the nets, plural. Peter didn't obey. He let down the net, singular. It's his fault he broke his net. He didn't listen to what Jesus told him to do. And you probably got problems in your life because you're not listening to what he told you to do, too. Listen carefully and do what he says. Kent's advice for the night. I'm going to bed. Thank you. Some more tomorrow.